Okay, good morning, party people. It is January 28th on Sunday. Hope you're having a good Sunday. Go to church. All right. So today for our daily reading, we are in the Old Testament. So today we read Numbers 11:12, Esther 7:8, Revelation 17:18, Psalms 87:88, and then Proverbs 23. All right, so that's for our daily reading. So we are back in Hosea today. We are in chapter 4. Last time we were in Hosea 2 days ago. It was chapter 3. It was very little. I called it the Jesus wept of Hosea. Jesus wept is the easiest verse to memorize in the Bible. Okay, so I just want to give you guys on my map where Hosea is and give you a little bit of context, okay? In case you haven't seen any of these videos. Okay, so this is the nation of Israel on a timeline, okay? So up here we see where the nation was split after Solomon's son Rehoboam became king. So the 10 tribes to the north are rebellious, and these guys, the 2 tribes that are considered the kings of Judah, the southern kingdom, this is the legitimate Davidic line, right? So this is the line that Jesus traces his lineage through. These guys are usurpers, right? So they broke away from what God wanted them to do and set up their own kingdom up here. Down here is where Jerusalem is, the temple. These guys set up a couple of false places of worship. Here is this line here delineates when the northern kingdom falls to the kingdom of Assyria. This line indicates here when the southern kingdom falls to the kingdom of Babylon. And this is where we see the story of Daniel in exile when he goes into Babylon. So here we are studying Hosea, right? So what you see here is you see Hosea is right there. So right at the fall, right before the fall and during the fall of the northern kingdom, he follows Amos, right? So he starts a lot of his ministries during Jeroboam II, when things were going really good. But then you see after Jeroboam II, there are some other kings, right? So during chapter 4, what we're seeing is Jeroboam II has died. And so you're seeing, normally with Hosea, he does judgment, and then you see future hope, right? So chapter 4, we don't see that. Chapter 4, he's just laying into them. Boom, boom, boom. And unlike Amos, we just studied Amos, who was right before him on this timeline. So here's Hosea, and here's Amos. So Amos was, he was more focused on the societal disruptions and complete turning on its head of the society because of their idolatry and the things turning away from God had completely destroyed society. And we went into a lot of detail about that. And he also referenced the idolatry, of course, because that's the source, right? When you walk away from God, everything else is going to fall apart. So what you see here in Hosea is mostly focused on the religious perversion, right? You see, of course, all of the natural stuff follows from that, just like I just said. But Hosea's focus is on the fall of the priests and the prophets and how they've neglected their duties. And by so doing, they are at a huge fault because of the place of where the nation of Israel is, or the northern kingdom is. The northern kingdom's always been a mess, but it's the priest's calling and the prophet's calling is to always try and not only, first of all, teach the people the law of God and admonish them and bring them back to God, but correct them, right? I mean, you have to correct them. So all of this applies to today, right? All of this applies to today. So here's chapter 3. So then the Lord said to me, I'm on chapter 4. So hear the word of the Lord, you children of Israel. For the Lord brings a charge against the inhabitants of the land. There is no truth or mercy or knowledge of God in the land. So when he says this, when God says this, he's not talking about intellectual awareness. He's talking about recognition of God's authority, right? So he's saying that there is no truth or mercy or knowledge of God in the land. Then it says, verse 2, by swearing and lying, killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break all restraint with bloodshed upon bloodshed. So therefore, verse 2, by swearing and lying, killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break all restraint with bloodshed upon bloodshed. So those are 5 of the 10 commandments right there, and that's in verse 2 in chapter 4 that have been broken, right? So there's no truth or mercy, there's no knowledge of God in the land, and then they're breaking 5 of the 10 commandments. That's in the first 2 verses of chapter 4, right? So that shows you how perverted and what a mess this place is, right? But what's the source of this? So all of these things are happening, but why, right? Then it says and it's because the priests and the prophets are not in their position. So verse 3 says, therefore the land will mourn, and everyone who dwells there will waste away, with the beasts of the field and the birds of the air. Even the fish of the sea will be taken away. So he's referencing the siege that's coming. Verse 4, now let no man contend or rebuke another, for your people are like those who contend with the priest. Therefore you shall stumble in the day. The prophet also shall stumble with you in the night, and I will destroy your mother. So mother there speaks of the nation of Israel, or the northern kingdom. So here he's saying, for your people are like those who contend with the priest. Therefore you shall stumble in the day. The prophet also shall stumble with you in the night. So he's calling out the priests and the prophets. They are not doing their job. My people are... Verse 6, and we all know this verse. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also will reject you from being priest for me. Because you have forgotten the law of your God, I also will forget your children. So the commentary says here that the priests did not teach the law, and because of that, they were going to have a special judgment. God's particularly calling them out because they know better. They were put in that position for a purpose, and they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so God's going to destroy the priestly line. And when it says, I also will forget your children, he's going to terminate the priestly line that was up there. So verse 7, the more they increase, the more they sinned against me. I will change their glory into shame. They eat up, now he's talking about the priests here. They eat up the sin of my people. They set their heart on their iniquity, and it shall be like people, like priests. So I will punish them for their ways and reward them for their deeds. For they shall eat, but not have enough. They shall commit harlotry, but not increase, because they have ceased obeying the law of the Lord. Here he's talking about, when he says they shall commit harlotry, this is religious prostitution, not sin in general, right? Not immorality in general. But here he's saying, the more they increase, the more they sinned against me. I will change their glory into shame. They eat up the sin of my people. So as the people are sinning, okay, and remember they've got these two false places of worship, right? So they're still going through the acts of bringing in sin offerings and doing all this stuff. So the more they sin, the more they bring in these offerings, right? And they want to look good. So again, there's this whole perversion of the religious system and the religious practices, and the priests are profiting from this. So by them not teaching the people and not correcting the people and not having the people change their ways, the people are continually bringing these. They'll sin, and the priest will be like, oh, it's okay, just bring me an offering. And so then he gets that offering, right? So they're being they're enlarging their estates or whatever, their wealth, by allowing the people to continue in their sin, right? They're not correcting them. So, and then it says, the priests are going to suffer just like the people are going to suffer, because when they're in captivity, the whole priestly office cannot continue, right? It's all based upon the temple and worship. And when they go into captivity, all of that's going to cease, which is why when we read when they were going back, under Nehemiah and Ezra, when we studied Nehemiah and Ezra, remember they were having trouble finding Levitical priesthood, people in the Levitical priesthood, because they had all been dispersed, right? And so, for them to survive, they rely on the temple and the things that were happening and the people bringing in the gifts, right? So then it says in verse 11, harlotry wine and new wine enslave the heart. My people ask counsel from their wooden idols, and their staff informs them. For the spirit of harlotry has caused them to stray, and they have played the harlot against their God. They offer sacrifices on the mountaintops and burn incense on the hills under oaks, poplars, and terebinths, because their shade is good. Therefore your daughters commit harlotry, and your brides commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they commit harlotry, nor your brides when they commit adultery, for the men themselves go apart with harlots. They offer sacrifices with the ritual harlot. Therefore the people who do not understand will be trampled. So here he's saying, I'm not going to come against the women for doing these things, because you men are leading them in this practice, right? So it's showing how they're worshiping these false gods all over the place, still on the mountains and the hills, and then they're using wooden idols to do divination, right? All of this is against the law of God. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. We're stopping on verse 14 so I can do another video. Remember, Jesus is coming. Read your Bible. Hold tight for number 2. Peace.